The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in, making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
Hey, this is Dave.
This is Lana. And what we're going to be talking about today is honesty. This is our first topic for a podcast. And I'll let Dave say what he's got to say there.
Oh, well, I didn't really have a lot to say right at the beginning.
It was skimming, Dave. I'm trying not to pontificate too much.
You're right. So with skimming, yeah, I suck at skimming. So
well, I'll throw this in. This is going to be our overview.
Okay.
Just basically in your own personal life, with your community relationships, with your romantic relationships, with your friendships, how honest are you with them about who you are? And then do you actually know who you are in your place in your world, based on, going back to your childhood. It's basically what we're discussing.
That's absolutely right. So let's begin. Let's discuss.
Okay.
So I feel very strongly about that. And in some of our conversations that I've had with Elena, she already knows. We've had the conversation where I say a lot of people are putting their lying foot forward. You know how they say put your best foot forward when you go on a date? I always refer to that as your lying foot, because if you're being somebody you're not, it's going to come out in the end. And I think that's why a lot of relationships today end so badly, because somebody's being not who they want to be, and you can only do that for so long. One or two things is going to happen. Either one, you're going to start despising that person for making you be somebody you're not, and it's your own fault, really. Or you're going to find out from the other person, if they're the ones putting their lying foot forward, and I'm finger quoting, if they're putting their lying foot forward at the beginning of dating, and they're eventually going to go back to being who they truly are. And you hear about that. Oh, he changed. She changed. They didn't change.
Well,
they
we've
went
had this
back,
conversation.
Right?
Allow me to present this theory. The change from who I thought they were in the beginning of the relationship. And again, we're going to try to encompass all of them. So not necessarily always romantic. Friendships as well. The person that you thought you knew became a different person after you meet them and after you become comfortable in the relationship. Let's say that the person that you met maybe was not who they were really in the beginning. So let's say that instead of them changing to a different person, they actually became a different person to get your attention, your approval, whatever it is in the beginning of the relationship that they felt you were going to want to see or hear. They presented themselves as somebody completely different to get like the hook in you, basically. And then at some point, they went back to, I guess, whoever they were before. My dog is
who they truly are. Right. Who they truly are is what it
who they truly are. Yeah. They act kind of, they can't do it for very long. I mean, the act, eventually they have to give up on that. Nobody can keep up an act for months and months and months, So they become who they are. They're comfortable. They feel like, I guess, in a way, it's really more complicated than this, but they feel like you're secure. You're not going anywhere at some point.
Right.
And they relax. And then you say, well, wait a minute, what is this whole thing? I didn't see all this coming in. So instead of, let's try to look at that. I just want to flip that. Say, instead of saying this person changed to somebody that they weren't in the beginning, they changed back to who they actually were from who
the truth came out is really what it is. Right. So, I can say that, I, for example, I could be online and say, hey, I have, long black hair and blah, blah, blah. Eventually the truth, who I really am, is going to come out. Right. So you can't hide it forever. And to me, that's crucial about honesty in anything. People lie on their resumes, for example, right? And I've been in business for a lot of years. So people lie on their resume. It comes out, right? Because I see something on the resume and I know you should be able to do this because it said so on your resume and you cannot. So hence you lied, right? You were being dishonest. It's going to catch up to you eventually.
It is.
And I'm going to say this, and you already know what I'm going to say. This is a quote from the late, great Jim Morrison. He said, "The most freedom you can experience in life is being true to who you really are." So if you can be who you truly are and everybody knows you for who you exactly are and you don't have to hide anything, in other words, that's the best freedom you can have in life. And I truly try to live like that. I read this a long time ago and I go, that's a great thing. And I don't get why people are dishonest. And we know that it goes back to childhood for sure.
That's part of it. But I want to say that I believe to some degree people have a need to want to be accepted by society to some degree. And that stems from childhood. But I believe that that's underlying a lot of stuff that people do is they're trying somehow to fit in. They're trying to be accepted. There are people out there that feel that they need to be accepted by everybody around them in order to be happy, in order to be whatever it is that they're looking for, that they feel like it's within their being accepted by others. And nothing's wrong with that, but wouldn't you want to be accepted for who you actually are?
Correct. And I think it's societal pressures, right? Like somebody may meet somebody, like I can go out and I can go on a date and meet this girl and I'm like, oh my God, she's perfect. My life would be great if I was with her. But in reality, it doesn't make a difference if she falls in love with somebody I'm not, because that will come out in the end. And it could be a year later. I mean, people force this stuff for a long time because they want what they want and they're willing to do anything to get it. And it's unfortunate because, I agree with you. Wouldn't it be great if, that person wanted to be with you because of who you really are, everything about you, all your faults, your who you truly are. I mean, you can, I mean, let's talk about filters, shall we? I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing on the face of this planet. I've met so many people in person that I've only ever seen on Facebook. And I'm like, you use a filter on every single one of your pictures. I've never even seen this person before. And, in reality, how does that help you? How does that help anything?
So I'm not going to take a devil's advocate position. I don't agree with filters. It depends on the point you're making or the context in which you use them. So if you're using if you just want to throw a picture up on social media and you don't have any intention of trying to get anybody to like you, and you feel like you want to use a filter because it makes you feel better, then rock on. That's your thing. If you're trying to sell yourself as a potential date or as somebody that you're going to, if basically you're using that as part of your presentation to another person to get them to accept you, then now I have kind of a problem with that.
Isn't that truly what social media is today, though?
It is, but
for most, right?
Right.
I would say, and I'm making up this number, but I would say it's at least 80% of people that are on Facebook are looking for attention from others. And
okay. Yes.
So,
and that's fine.
Again,
I'm trying not to judge.
If you're a model and you're doing an ad, then filters are fine. They've been doing that for years, airbrushing pictures, and I get that.
It's just now becoming a public thing where everyone else can do it.
Everybody, correct, and everybody's using it. I mean, I see filters and their eyes, it moves their eyes to a different place.
Right.
Like and it's crazy because I'll look at somebody, I'll be out in public and I'll look at somebody and I'll go, she kind of looks familiar. And she's like, oh yeah, we're friends on Facebook. And I'm like, what? Who?
What?
And I look it up and I'm like, yeah, that's a shame because
it
kind of looked familiar, but it could have been your sister, right? Not you, your better looking sister. And I'm not trying to be mean by saying that, but in reality, and again, this is not a thing about filters, we come from a thing about honesty.
You and I, Dave, come from an era where so much of what is going on today wasn't even considered an attractive trait.
Right.
We grew up in the 70s. In the 70s, it was like if you had a gap between your teeth, if you had long hair, if you did not have a size D rack if you weren't 100% fit, and all these things that are very big now as far as like a popularity goes.
Right.
Really were not. It's so weird. I can't explain it, but if you go back and watch some old 70s movies, you'll see what was considered glamorous and, at that time, what society believed to be exciting or acceptable or whatever it is. And we became such an, I don't know what I want to call it. Like, we become such like a fembot society in the sense that like we've become, there's this complete idealistic view of what people think people should look like that is so far from what I grew up with. And I'm going to be kind of cheesy for a minute, which is not like me. But so my friends, all of my friends that I know in person, who, even people that I meet now in person, but most of my friends that I've known for years, they have all of these characteristical flaws in them that I find beautiful. That
absolutely
makes sense. Like I love looking at my friends for who they are. I don't want them to look like everybody else. I want them to look like who they are. That's
Correct.
what makes them who they are. And obviously their personalities and things like that, all of that is one big package that makes sense to me. And they accept me the same way. And if you will get to know me through this podcast, but if you do know me in person, you will know I put up the worst, not the worst, but I refuse to put a filter on my face or anything like that, because I have no interest in trying to get people to like me or accept me. I really,
right.
I'm not saying I don't want people to like me and I'm trying to get them to go away, but basically I'm looking to get the shortest, most efficient response from people. If they don't like me, I want them to not like me as fast as possible so that I can move on and find my crowd of people who do accept me. So,
and that's okay. And you brought up you were talking about the personality traits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's another good thing to talk about, because as we're talking about honesty, your personality traits are who you are. And when people change their personality traits, I'll tell you, I'll give you a quick story. I went on a date. This was years ago. And I went on a date with this girl, and we had been hanging out for quite some time, and things were great. She was really a nice person. She treated me like a king. We went out to eat one day. One night we were out at dinner, and she treated that waitress like crap. The waitress was like, "I'm sorry, I'm new." And she was like, "I don't care if you're new." But she was so rude that I literally called the waitress over. I said, "I'm paying for the tab right now." I said, "Can you get the tab?" And she's like, "Why are you getting the tab now? We haven't even eaten yet." I go, "'Cause I'm getting the tab." And so the tab come over. Not only did I pay the tab, I tipped the girl and said, "You don't have to come back to this table at all. You're done here." Yeah. And I got up and I walked out, and I said, and that's why, one of the reasons why I meet people, at a place, so I can leave and not feel guilty. I would not want it to drive her home, but the truth came out. Her personality sucked. And it's like, look, just be honest, because we may have been friends. I just wouldn't have went out to eat with you, if you have a suck. Well,
I'll agree with you on this. Anybody that I meet, if you're trying to impress me, which first of all, if you know my personality, if I can tell that you're trying to impress me, it will turn me off. It's actually the opposite effect with me. However, I will watch you very closely how you treat everyone else. I will watch very closely what your decision-making process is, how you view others. If you sit down with me and you start tearing apart anybody or anything, with me, it's not what you're doing, it's why you're doing it. And I'm always in the back of my head analyzing. I hate to say it. I know people, I don't want people to be nervous around me, but if you are your genuine self and it doesn't match my personality as far as who I think, I should have in my life, I'm going to say, okay, well, this isn't for me. I'm not going to knock this person, but it's just not for me. If you're trying to impress me so that I don't eliminate you, but I see you turn and tear up someone else, or I see you sit down and, go off on somebody, how they look or anything like that. Just like if you're petty about anything like that and you think it's okay to be that way, I'm going to really consider that as far as like who you are as a person. So it's not going to be all how you treat me. And as I just wanted to mention that, as they were saying, because there are people who will only try to impress the people that they're looking to keep around, and like everyone else is like not worth their time. And
correct.
That's not.
And that's how you can tell a dishonest person, right? Mm-hmm. So let me just say this. We talked a little bit, and I brought up the fact that, and I'm talking to everybody out here now. The thing is, if you go on a date Do what you do. Be you, because if you're not, you're lying. And here's another thing is honesty, and Elena will tell you, I say it all the time, be honest with yourself, because most people are not honest with themselves. They stop believing that they can be who somebody else wants them to be. You cannot. Mm-hmm. You will not. You cannot. You will never be happy. You know, people are like, well, they need, and you hear this all the time. Well, if two people love each other, they change. Nope, you don't. That you do not change. Situations change. People do not change. You have been built the way you are because of your childhood. Now, that does not mean that you can't better yourself and become a better person throughout time. But who you are, your personality traits will not change. If you, for example, if you don't like people, which I know a couple people here on this podcast that generally, and I won't say don't like people, don't like company as much as most. And in fact,
I'm just genuinely in love with my solitude. Yes.
Yes. I had people in my yard yesterday. They were putting down stone, and one of the helpers was there, and he seemed like an okay guy. He was a little weird, but that's okay. They were doing the job, and he goes, hey, and he's right around the corner from me. And he goes, hey, you seem like a pretty cool guy. Is it okay if I stop by sometime? And I went, no, you cannot.
It is not. But it's good that he asked.
Yeah. And he goes, well, I appreciate you being honest. And again, I'm honest. I'm not trying to hurt the guy's feelings. I just don't like, my friends even know you don't show up at my house without unannounced. I hate it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Right? Exactly. And
I don't know how to say this, but I like company, but I don't know how else to put this. It has to be kind of like when I'm in the mood for it.
Correct. Yeah. I'm the same
when I'm
way.
in the frame of mind for it.
Right.
So I've never, I grew up, and maybe because of our generation, I think really a lot of us grew up in the 60s and 70s with that. Hey, stop by anytime you want. Your parents might have had something aside that was for company.
Right.
Like, hey, don't touch that. That's for company. Don't touch that. That's for company.
Right. We always had company. Yeah.
Yeah. So my house was like that too, where, as a typical kid, I wake up on the weekend and get up, scratch my butt, walk down the hallway and get some cereal. And there'd be 14 people at the table and coffee.
Right. Right.
And I just for me, that messes with my brain. I can't do that unless I'm prepared for it. It's just the way I'm wired. And
yeah,
I'm not much of that growing up
either. Yeah.
So yeah, I need to know. I have to be prepared. I have to know ahead of time.
I don't even know. And the problem I have with people over my house is that I was raised by a single mom, and I'm an only child, so I had a lot of solitude, which I hated when I was a kid growing up.
I loved it. Yeah.
But because my friends had a sister or a brother or something, they had somebody to talk to. Yeah. I did not. So that's why I think I'm so social today, even though I like my privacy,
So you like it the way you like it. I don't think it's either or. It's not
correct.
Mutually exclusive. I cannot talk to
you don't exclude. Yeah.
It's not mutually exclusive, meaning I either like people or I don't like people. I either like company or I don't like company. I think it's what time of day, what kind of mood you're in, what your schedule looks like, all of that.
And how long it lasts. See, the thing with me is, and I'm honest about it. And again, this is the podcast about honesty today. So, if I'm being honest and I let people know that I don't, when my time is done, my time is done.
Right.
My energy is
the battery specific. Runs out. That's what we call it.
It does. My energy is very specific. And when the energy changes with people around me or whatever, I'm gone. I go. And my friends all know that now, right? And they know that because I'm honest with them.
Right.
And they don't take it personal, right?
Exactly.
And the people that do take that personally, well, they're not my people. And that's okay. And that's called being honest with yourself, right? So, and what I meant by being honest with yourself, and we roll back to that, is that a lot of times somebody will go, well, I'm in a relationship with this guy or girl, and, I asked somebody the other day, and I said, she's having a problem with her boyfriend, and I said, do you trust him? And she goes, well, he wouldn't cheat on me. I go, that's not the question I asked. Do you trust him? Like completely, And her answer was, well, he did use my debit card without my permission and spent a lot of money without asking. And yeah, I mean, he tried to hide it and said it wasn't him. And I go, so the answer to my question is what?
Right.
Be honest with yourself. And she goes, no, I don't trust him. I go, how can you be in a relationship with somebody you cannot trust, that you don't trust? Well, he wouldn't cheat on me. I go, cheating is not the only issue here, right?
Yeah, there's several. I mean, there's a bunch
of course. Either you trust him or you don't, right? It's
that's
not
that
like,
binary thing from when we were kids. We think cheating is like the only thing that could be a discussion in a relationship. And when we were in like high school, yeah, sure, that's the only thing that we care about at that point. But just because somebody's loyal to you and doesn't cheat on you doesn't mean that they're for you.
Correct. And here's another thing too. And again, you're going to hear me say this a ton, and Lana will tell you, I say it all the time. When you are building a relationship, you are planting a seed. When you plant that seed, you have no clue what's going to grow. So stop saying, this is what I planted. No, you don't know that. Because when you get to know somebody, as you get to know them, more truths come out, right? And as you schedule your life, you look at, these are all the things I need in a person, right? And again, this comes down to being honest with yourself. If you know, for example, with me, I'm a very affectionate person. I need to be with somebody that's affectionate. I tried once, and I was with somebody for 4 years that was not affectionate. Not her fault, but it's just who she was as a person. I denied myself that necessity that I find necessary because I wasn't being honest with myself. I thought I could deal with it. I thought, oh, that's okay. This is, let me put aside my wants and my needs. And I suffered for 4 years. It was horrible. And again, being honest with yourself and realizing, had I been honest with myself and go, yeah, that's something that I really need. And I know. And eventually I get to the point where I despise this woman so much. And it's me being an ass, right? Yeah. I'm an ass because she was just being who she was.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I resented her for not being what I wanted her to be. And that's ridiculous to me. And that's being honest who you are. And again, the planting of the seed, it grows, and you grow this great friendship, which we call a tomato plant. I do. But you're hoping for this great orange tree. And here's what happens. Ask yourself this question. How do I get along with my exes? Ask yourself that question. And if the answer is, I hate them all, that's your fault. Somebody's not being honest, right? Here's the thing. If you're honest and you go, hey, you know what? We built here a great tomato plant, but it's not the great orange tree that we were hoping for, that's okay. Just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, this is not really what I wanted or you wanted. We don't have an orange tree here, but we have a great tomato plant, which is a friend. Right. And you end up with a great friend. The last girl I dated her for a year, and it was a tough conversation. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but I had to be honest and say, we're missing some things here that are crucial.
Right.
And did I want to hang on to it? Of course I did. It's part of who we are. I mean, I loved her very much. She loved me. We got along great, never fought, nothing, but we were missing some stuff. And those are things that I cannot go forever because I realized that I was starting to despise her and get mad at her for not being what I needed. And I said to her, eventually I'm going to hate you. I don't want to do that because I love you to death and you're my best friend, one of my best friends. So we kept the tomato plant because if you take a tomato plant and you try to make it into an orange tree, you will kill it.
Yeah. So. I mean, for me, the way that you're brought up, it's so hard not to project that onto everyone else and say, well, if you did this, then it means this. If you do this, then it means this. So when somebody does something that, you're not used to from growing up, it means something completely different to you. Everybody is using a different playbook coming out of their particular childhood and environment. So there has to be some idea of, what do I feel like this means? And when this person does this, there should be more communication. A lot of people will just assume that they know exactly what you mean by what you do without asking about it. That's a big thing. But you have to be honest with the fact that your particular playbook is only going to be, it makes sense to you based on your family and your background and everything else, but it doesn't necessarily, it could be completely different than what the person you're dealing with playbook is. And I think that causes a lot of friction. If if being that I don't feel like everyday communication is a big thing, it isn't to me. It just isn't to me. It isn't the way that my family was. It isn't. I mean, my family was there's a whole another story about going on about that. But in general, whether you spend 2 or 3 times a day texting something or saying a specific thing, that means something to your family or your background, and the person that you're dating doesn't do that thing. It doesn't mean that they don't care. It doesn't mean that they don't.
Correct.
It's just their level of whatever it is that they're doing, what they grew up thinking made sense, and you're projecting your interpretation
needs
onto what they're doing, and they're projecting theirs onto you. I think that
right.
that's probably 50% of the relationships out there. That's the issue they're having, is they just come from 2 different playbooks and cannot sit down with both of them and say,
yeah,
okay, well, this is a problem when you do this. And, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. I do this and it didn't even dawn on me that this would be a problem for you. Oh, okay, now I know. Let's work. Let's talk this out. Let's move forward.
Right. And if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't.
Right.
People have asked me, because they know that Lana and I have been friends for quite some time, and we talk all the time, and we have extensive conversations, and we actually don't mind being in each other's space. It's not, we're compatible that way. However, people are like, how come you guys never dated? And one of the things is, I'm an emotional guy. She's not emotional. And that's important to me. So, I would be lying if I accepted that. Right. So, right. And, there are certain things like people just put aside their own things. They're not being honest with themselves, and they try because they don't want to be alone. And that is something
that's the bottom line for
that
everything,
really
isn't it?
is. It is the bottom line. People, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. And I'm like, hold on. I've been single for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not alone. I have friends. I have family. I enjoy my life. Right? Would it be nice to have somebody here in my space when I wanted them here, to sit and hold their hand and watch TV? Of course, I would love that. Mm-hmm. But it's not the end all be all of who I am as a person. I'm not saying that I disagree with relationships. I don't. I would love to be in one, but it has to be the one.
It has to be the right combination.
Of course it does. It's like I said earlier, I'm a big energy person. I can't tell you if I'm going to like somebody until I touch that person or they touch me and I feel something. You know what I mean? And that's not a dirty thing. I mean,
no, I understand.
On a
I know, like,
energy level,
right? Audiences out there, get your mind out of the gutter.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
I do agree that your energy has to, I call it when you're breathing the same air, or you're in the same space.
Right.
There has to be something that's a mutual, wow, I want to know more about this or whatever.
Of
that
course.
Should be there. If it's not there, and some people, I can't speak for everybody. There are people that I know that say that they can grow to, and I don't believe that that's not true. It's just not something I understand or I have, as far as my wiring is concerned. I'm not going to say that all human beings aren't like that, because that's not fair. I'm sure there are people like that.
Of course.
But the people that are like that tend to, for some reason, those people end up in my life and they feel that I'm the same way. And it's like, kind of, no, in the first 8 minutes, I was like not romantically interested. That's not going to change. It's not going to change because it's been 2 months. I do know what I'm talking about. I'm one of those very few people that will tell you from the beginning I know what's going on here, and I can explain it to you the way it is, and it's not going to change. For you to say that I know better than you, and 3 months down the road it's going to be different. That doesn't happen with me.
Right.
So, but I know that there are people out there that are like that, and those people will tend to project onto everyone else that person's the same way, and so.
Right. So
also there are cultures and things that don't really believe in mutual attraction. They believe in breeding and pedigree and things like that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's important to them. That's fine. I think if there's a mutual interest in attraction, it's much easier, I think, probably. But to some backgrounds, it is a business deal, and that's respected. That's fine. Of course.
Yeah, and that's okay too. And it is at some point a business deal as well. I mean, I have had conversations where I've done little things with guys that struggle with meeting women. So I've had conversations with guys, and I say, look, let's say we're sitting in a bar. This is the way I live my life. I look at a girl from across the bar and I say to myself, could I spend the rest of my life with her? Now, that's based on just what I'm seeing, right? And I go, yes, I could, the way she looks, right? Now, let me approach her. Now, I approach her and I start talking to her. Could I spend the rest of my life with this woman? The answer is yes. So let's continue to find out more until I get to the point where I go, yeah, nope. I could not spend the rest of my life with this person.
Right.
I'm honest with myself, and that's where it ends. Now,
so I have the exact same theory, but I call it something different. I call it process of elimination.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
It means that there's this really big,
out.
wide net. You meet a bunch of people, and they all fall into this net. And at some point, it's funny because if you're there are people that do not in the beginning, they don't date one person at a time. They may date 3 or 4, and this is like early on initially. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it's one date in, or you're talking to somebody on the phone.
Correct.
There's nothing wrong with that because you really don't know who you're dealing with. And, you know, we all have we don't have an infinite amount of time on this earth to be dating one person at a time that could get. But at the end of the day, people that are not for you really will generally fall out of the picture. They'll just eliminate themselves at some point. You really don't even have to decide. Sometimes you end up with no people. I mean, this is what happens. But even when you start dating, it's just a big funnel effect to me where there are some people that you start dating and at some point during the dating process, because all you're finding out is more about who they are, and you're not looking to eliminate them. That's not really my point.
Right.
But my point is all you know in the beginning is that you want to know more until you don't. At some point,
Correct.
You may never want to not know more, and you'll always want to know more. But at some point with some people, you're going to say, okay, I've learned enough here.
Right.
You know,
and this ain't it.
Right. And so that's, to me, the dating process, the talking and dating and courting process, all of that to me is just knowledge seeking, or it's fact finding. And you get to a level where you kind of know everything there is to know, and you're still okay with it. Then, you know, okay, and people that have been divorced, but people that have been married and divorced have still been eliminated just longer down the road.
Right, exactly.
It's the same process. It's just, you know, as, you know, you can live with somebody for 4 years and marry them and have 2 kids and buy a house and all that, and still at some point say, okay, I've learned all I need to know here.
Right.
I would love to continue this, but there's a point in time where 2 people are just not going the same direction, and
correct.
They part ways. So unfortunately, I know people say, well, that's a really miserable way to look at it, but
is it really though?
It's fine. You know, everything's clinical and scientific to me. Yes.
Here comes okay. As you guys listen to these podcasts, you'll know I love my analogies. So here's one. You go to a restaurant, you order some food, and it comes out on the plate, and it looks delicious. It smells delicious. And then you taste it, and it tastes like shit. Guess what? You're not going to still go, ooh, I love that. You're not. You're going to go, I'm never ordering that again. It's out of my life for good, right? Now, I don't understand why dating should be any different. When you get to the point where it tastes like shit, move on. Accept that and stop saying, well, but it looks good and it smells good.
So and everybody else around me thinks it looks good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and again,
it's the peer pressure that gets everybody.
Be honest with yourself. It's so important because and again, that the most freedom you can experience is being who you really are. And I believe that wholeheartedly. You will not get me to lie because I'm not going to lie. And here's the thing. I don't owe anybody anything.
Well, no.
You don't owe people anything.
Exactly.
So you don't need to lie. And if people don't love you for who you are, they're not your people. And that's okay. You need to realize that honesty is crucial in your life because it gives you freedom. Right. When you start being something you're not.
Honest about who you are, and you're honest about what you know you want or need, or whatever the case may be that works for you in your life.
Right.
You'll never have to try to remember what you said and get it right. You'll never have to, your story is never going to change. And so you never have to, nobody will ever have to doubt your authenticity, that your story today in 20 years is the same story, with the exception of you being an experienced person and growing and that kind of thing. But who you are and what you say, I know there are people who will tell me something about something I said 15 years ago, and I'll nod and go, yep, that's pretty much something I would say. It's like,
exactly.
I may say things too soon and a little bit too bluntly. Sometimes it's like brick to the forehead.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm working on that.
No.
I always say I might make you cry, but you'll never not know where you stand with me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well,
my people, there are people around me, and there are people that are like me and have my personality, and that's great. But there's people that I've known since I was a kid, and they're all types of people with all types of personalities. And those people, I love them for who they are. I get them where they're at. And they love me for who I am, and they get me where I'm at. And that, to me, that's what, obviously, if some of us had to live with each other for more than a couple of days, it might change. But as far as my friends are concerned, we actually love each other because of the authenticity of the person that we're dealing with. Right. There's a reason why they fill that space in our life as a piece of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah. So. we have a situations where, when people start dating, and I'm going back to the dating and the honesty thing, where, which I don't understand, by the way. I don't understand the dishonesty.
Maybe I can help you understand
yourself. Maybe you can. So I just never understand why somebody is dishonest with themselves in who they are, or they want that person so bad. My question is why? Why? There's so many people in this world. Is it because you got a little bit of attention? And we know, and I know, it goes back to childhood for sure, right? And these are things that people need to ask themselves is, why do I get attached to somebody so quickly, for example?
Though, for a lot of people, it's so hard to ask the questions about themselves. It's so easy to project and focus on everybody else.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
If you're out there and you don't understand why things are happening the way they are in your life, if you say, well, I keep dating the same guy and I don't understand why, or whatever the case may be, or all of my friends, this is a recent, somebody made a recent comment to me, it seems like all of my friends don't have time for me. Why is that? And I'm like, well, my friends and we have lives and schedules, but we try to make sure that we have time for each other. But we also very forgiving about knowing that sometimes we don't. We have so much going on that we can't get together. I would love to see my friends more often than I do, honestly. My really good long-term friends.
Sure.
I really, those are people that can be in my space, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I love them being around. They add to my energy. They don't take from it. But somebody will say, well, maybe I have the wrong friends. And I'll say to them, well, I don't know what to tell you because I can't relate to that. I just can't. If somebody's not bringing me the right energy, then they're just they get phased out. And then I get phased out. It doesn't make them wrong or me wrong. It makes us just not a match as far as them being in my little orbit, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if there are things that that you do, if you're a defensive person, it's I guess, I don't know how many people do this. I know for me, it's perpetual. I do it every day, all day. I question my responses to things. I question the way that I handle things.
That's because why am I handling this? You want to know you, right? You want to make sure you know who you are, and you want to make sure that you can grow in life.
I'm an analysis crazy person, and so I was my very first test subject. I don't know what to tell you. I'm really into psychology and sociology, and the only person that I could at any time, day or night, analyze without any question was myself. So of course, I've gone through all kinds of, when I tell you I've interviewed family members, and I have gone through, in order to find out who I am and why I'm the way I am, I've gone through my childhood, and I've talked to everybody I could. It's me. I know most people don't want to find out who they are. They actually do the opposite. I find that odd. I'm not saying, I just don't understand it, that you wouldn't want to know, but some people really are not wanting to deal with their demons, whatever it is that's going on with their life. They have a very hard time dealing with the truth or the honesty of whatever it is that who they are and why they are. They actually run from it.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, then you're doing things like you're being defensive, you're projecting, you're looking at somebody that you don't know from a hole in the wall, and you're saying, hey, this person looks like they are this, and this. That's all things that your mind puts on somebody.
Yeah, you're making assumptions.
Fills in the blanks for something.
We know that old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but we do, right? People do. And what I'd like to do,
one of the things I hate, I really don't like that. But
what I'd like to do right now is I'm a guy.
Mm.
You're a woman. I think what we should do is I'm going to give some advice to the ladies, and then you give some advice to the men. Does that sound good? All right. So I'm going to actually tell things that happen to me directly, and I'm going to explain a little bit of why, and then you can do the same. So, ladies, I'm a fairly successful guy, and I wouldn't say that I'm a bad looking guy. I don't know. I mean, but.
Oh, Dave, you're a handsome bastard.
Oh, thank you, Lana. So I would suggest that I'm considered what a lot of people would consider a good catch, right? I'm a bad boy gone goodish. I came from the bad boys, so that, I got the tattoos. I got, I have a past in my life and I kind of turned all that around, so I understand that life. So a lot of women are attracted to bad boys, so I get that type of thing too. Now, ladies, here's what happens. When I have a conversation with a woman that's interested in me, I can immediately tell that she's interested. But here's what happens. I say, oh, I like this. And she goes, oh, I like that too. We can be having a conversation and I can hear that, for example, she may not be into something that I'm into, and I can kind of hear that. And then when I tell her that I'm into that, all of a sudden she's into it too. Again, she's lying because she's trying to make the catch, right? And here's the thing. It's kind of like fishing. I'm one of those fish that I don't like the artificial lure. I like the live bait. You know what I mean? So the thing is, if you're trying to meet a man, be honest about who you are and the things you like and don't like, because I would much rather hear a woman say to me, yeah, I disagree with that, and that's okay, because now we find out, is that something, for example, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I voted for Trump. There are women out there that says, and they go, oh, I hated Trump. And I may go, well, he's not the best guy in the world. You gotta at least be honest and say what you say, and then we can discuss it and see if it's something that we can continue on with, right? There are people that just are such bigots that they go, you voted for Trump, I hate you. Okay, well, I'll move on then. I can't change that. Nor would have I. But that's not neither here nor there. But
the same in the other direction. It obviously.
Yes, exactly. If you voted for Biden, I'm not going to hate you for it. I want to know why. I'm curious to what your thoughts process were. And some will say, well, I believed he was the less of the two evils. Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. And that's cool. I don't have a problem with it. But the thing is to be honest about who you are. If I say I voted for Trump and you're biting your tongue knowing you hate the man, and you tell me, oh, me too.
Yeah.
You've lost me. And because you can't fake like you're who you are. And so for my opinion, my advice to the ladies is be completely honest to who you are. I had somebody ask me once, I'm going on a date for the first time. I really like this guy and we're going out to eat. What should I eat? What the hell kind of question is that? Yeah. Eat what you want.
I know.
Yeah, well, I don't want them to think
I've heard that question.
What are you kidding me? Just eat what you want. What if you end up married to this guy and living with him? You're going to keep eating friggin' like a rabbit because that's what he believes you are? I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. Be who you are and be honest about who you are. And it's okay to disagree with somebody. You're not going to automatically get thrown off out of the date. I'm not going to automatically shut somebody off and go, just because you disagree with me. And again, if that's the type of person you are, then we're not okay together anyway. So the thing is be honest, completely honest with yourself about what you want. Like if you come and you sit down at the table with me and we start talking and stuff and we good friends, but you don't like, I don't know, you don't like my jawline and you go, yeah, I don't find him attractive. That's okay. We can still be friends. And this is
but that's also not personal. Like, I feel like that's not personal.
It's not.
I know people who will take it that way and will tell you it is.
Right.
And so that's unfortunate, but I can't, to me, attraction is it's kind of a big thing. I have a few.
It is. Me too.
Few big things that I find that had to be a combo for me.
Me
and
too.
They're pretty rare. But
yeah,
I can't not be attracted to somebody and then just be like, I mean, I will always probably date somebody. I will always probably go out with somebody twice just because I feel like the first time I date anybody, I should probably give them just not be quick to judge.
Right.
But if I'm dating you 8 times and I know I'm not interested, Okay, now it's ridiculous.
Right. I mean,
And
look,
I'm not going to do that.
If I'm in a relationship, I want to look at my significant other, and every time she walks by, I go, yeah, I want to pin her against the wall. I want that.
Right. The
Because
lust has to be there. It doesn't have to
yes.
be the only thing there, but it has
No,
to
of
kind
course
of be
not.
part of it.
It can't be the only thing there, right? Because
Yeah.
then, once you take it to the next step and you're in bed, if just the lust is there and nothing else is there, you will find that out real quick. That sex will be like mundane. It won't be, truly what you want. It will be at first because lust is a heavy driver. But after that, it's not. Okay, so time for you to give advice to the men. Men, are you ready for Lana?
The very first thing that I'm going to say for men is, again, it feels to me like, and of course, I'm not in their shoes, so what do I know? But it feels to me like men are almost trying to worry about any kind of elimination from being considered. It isn't a bad thing that somebody isn't interested back in you if you make a move to talk to somebody and they're not interested. It doesn't mean that you talking to them was wrong. It means that you found out that you're not mutually interested in somebody that you found interesting. So there's no shame. There's no, my biggest piece of advice is please, for the love of all that is, please take a no gracefully. Please take a no gracefully.
Right.
We live in a kind of a small, New England's a very small area. So, one, just how you, and by the way, there are a lot of groups cropping up on different parts of social media now that are all screenshots. I mean, if you're going to be a really terrible person right now, this is documented. I'm just telling you, before you say anything to a woman because they turned you down, I'd say figure out how it's going to look at a screenshot before you say it. That being said, there's nothing wrong with somebody telling you that they're not interested. And you have to understand that there's always a chance that somebody may not be, and at some point they may not want to continue. The one analogy that I heard, I'm going to give this is for Dave's sake. When I started on dating sites early on, because a lot of them had like forums and chatting. They were sort of pages where you could kind of have discussions and threads and things like that. I kind of like that stuff. So I was on a couple of dating sites for that reason. And one of the first things I ever heard was when you're out fishing and the fish don't bite, you don't yell at the fish.
That's a good analogy.
You just don't yell at the fish. You don't yell at the water and shake your fists at the water and say, how dare you be a bad fishing spot?
Yeah, how dare you not accept my bait? Yeah.
Like, or even if there's no fish there at all, or it's a very slow day, you don't yell at the environment around you and say and stomp your feet and say, well, I don't like this and why isn't it? I mean, it's just completely counterproductive to do that. So it's really weird for us women to say, hey, look, I don't think this is going to work, or no, thank you, or whatever we're saying. I mean, honestly, it shouldn't matter that you're getting the no, and the kind of no you're getting shouldn't matter. There are men that will lecture us for days about how we should have said no, and I don't think that matters. What matters is that you're getting the information you need, because you're in the middle of a dating process and you want, as quickly as possible, you want the information that you need so that you can make your next decision. To me, that's all it is. Maybe there's no feeling to that. I happen to think until you really know somebody well, there shouldn't be a whole lot of feeling involved. What you're trying to do is meet somebody that matches you. You want them to be mutually interested. So to get mad at somebody who doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand as a man that if
I
you
agree.
say,
And I've seen.
You've seen it. I've shown you some stuff. You've seen some stuff.
I have.
It's amazing to me.
And guys, I'm just going to add to this. As a guy, I don't get you, because I've seen people speak in a text so highly of Lana, and then as soon as she says, well, we're a little bit different and I'm not really interested, and she says it nicely, then all of a sudden he calls her a whore and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell happened here? It's like, what is wrong with you? It's like,
well, it goes back to honesty, because I think that most people who are talking to me they're going, okay, well, let me tread lightly here and let me do what I'm doing and whatever. And as soon as they realize there's nothing for them to lose, they become who they really are, as far as I'm concerned.
And I would agree with that, because
So,
if somebody said to me, look, I'm not interested in, and again, this is still for the guys, as a guy who is honest with myself. If a girl says I'm not interested, that's okay. It's like, here's the thing. Even when back in my clubbing days when I was young and I would go out dancing, right? And I'd see a girl that I was attracted to and I would go ask her to dance and she'd be like, well, no, I am not really interested. And I'm like, I just want to dance. Can we all dance? And I would dance with her and all her friends. That worked every time, because I don't have a specific thing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Because look, I'm not God. I'm not Jesus Christ. So
I'm going to use a phrase here before I forget. Don't be outcome dependent. Do not be outcome dependent.
Right.
That means if you start the process hoping that in the end you get the phone number, you get the connection, you get the date, if that's your end all, that's your goal at the end, you're doing it wrong. It should only matter that you're a social person, that you, if that's what you want to be. Obviously, don't go out and be social if it's going to be something you don't like. But if you want to go out and you want to be around people, learn, one, to have a very good conversational base. Understand how to make conversation with everybody. And this is men, women, young, old. Understand how to walk up to anybody and start a conversation, and then understand the language of conversation and whether or not the person that you're talking to is receptive, and learn how to cut your losses and stop in the conversation gracefully and all that kind of stuff. Just learn how to be a conversational person. Two, men do this more than women. And since I'm giving advice to the men, I won't go that far with it, but understand, be comfortable in who you are and be yourself, and understand that sometimes you want to go out and experience something because it's what you want, because of the thing that if you want to go to a bar because the food is good, you go to a bar because the food is good. You sit down, you have a meal because that environment is something that you find pleasant. Do it that way. Right. Like, hey, I want to go out. Don't say I want to go to this club because the chicks are great.
Yeah, right.
That's an outcome dependent type of thing.
Right.
What you want to do is you want to go out and you want to just learn about people, just be social, be friendly. Just learn how to be fluid, obviously, and go along with the flow of wherever you're at. Mm-hmm. But be there because of the experience that you're there to experience. If you want to go see, a concert, go because the person who's throwing that concert is somebody you want to hear.
Right.
Go because you like the music. Go because you like the environment, the atmosphere. If you want to go to a club, go because the DJ's good. Go because the room is what you like. Go because the park is good. Whatever it is, but don't go hoping you're going to leave the phone number.
You mean don't go to a Bon Jovi concert because it's all smoking hot women?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
that used to happen.
That can be a side effect of what you're doing.
Yes.
Somebody said to me the other day, it's really funny. Somebody said to me the other day, I thought I would meet chicks going to a yoga class. I just remember. I wish I could have a picture of my face.
They
when
don't
they were
want to
telling me
meet
this.
you at. They don't want to meet you at
And
the
I'm
yoga
like,
class, guys. They don't. They had to do yoga not to be picked up. Yeah,
that's
so.
The gym is a place where, over my years, I don't know how many times I've been walked up to and talked to at a gym, and it's just like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's women there that are looking to pick up guys in a gym or whatever the case may be. That's not why I go. I go to work out. I go to work out and leave.
Right.
If I talk to somebody in the process, fine. Like if somebody's walking up to me trying to talk to me while I'm on a treadmill or something like that, I'm just not going to be a pleasant person if that's what they're doing.
Right.
I want to talk to you. Like I'm there to do my thing. I have headphones in. I have a book I'm reading. Whatever. At the end of the day, though, this is my advice. My advice is to be take a note gracefully and pay attention to what women are saying to you. Obviously, get the information you need. Right. Just go to the interaction, be friendly. Don't expect it to end a certain way, and just get the information you need. If it's, I am not interested in you, take the information. Don't ask us why we're not interested, because that doesn't matter. Everybody likes something different. But just, okay, I hear you. Thanks for telling me. Thank them for telling you, because some women will date you for 2 months and not be interested in you and waste your time. So thank women for telling you as soon as possible if they're not, so that you can move on to somebody who is. I'll leave it at that.
That's a good good thing. And don't be afraid to let things grow organically. Stop pushing stuff.
Yes.
It's let
Stop
it grow
trying to
organically.
make stop trying to force interactions or force whatever.
I get it. If you need a relationship that bad where you try to force stuff, you might want to look at your own life and say, why am I doing that? That's a question for you to ask yourself. Why am I doing that? And again, it's part of being honest with yourself and finding out why you need to be in a relationship so bad that you'll be somebody you're not. And that's just, that's how
I would say that if you're the type of person who is not happy in your own company, and I'm not saying every minute of every day, obviously sometimes you're not happy with things the way they are. I get that. But if overall you're not content with like just your own company, that's a good place to start and figure out why that is. Is that something you were programmed to learn from your family? Did somebody tell you that was wrong? Do you have intrusive thoughts that you don't want to deal with? And like what? Find out exactly what was under all of that and see if you can try to get that like sorted out. Because that's a big deal.
I agree.
That changes your yeah. And with that being said,
we're out of time today, and I'll tell you, and Lana knows we could talk for hours, but that would make for some really long podcasts. So,
right.
I believe that we had a conversation about what our next one will be. Our next podcast, I believe, is going to be friendship versus romance, and that spins off from being honest, right? So. You be honest about whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, and otherwise you'll destroy you. You miss out on so many friendships, and we'll be talking about that next week. So, you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.
Yeah,
I'm
you
David.
Too. I'm Lana. We're out. We'll see you soon. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.